We're holding here Daf Tzadik Hey Amud Bet. We're speaking about Reb Shimon's Shita, that Reb Shimon holds that whether it's perforated or not, it's considered patur from tolesh in all cases, because Rabbi Shimon holds that even a perforated pot is not considered mechubar. But yesterday we found out that Rabbi Zera said that Rabbi Shimon is modeh by a perforated pot b'chtei taharato. That means that if it was shem nikiv b'chtei taharato, if it had a hole as large as a zayit that would be able to come out of it, which we're going to see very soon, is the shiurim that makes it tahor. So therefore, it's not really a keli, and now that it's not a keli, good morning, if you detach something from it, it's going to be an isser. Why? Because it's considered attached to the ground, since it's not really lying in a keli. Since the keli is not mekabel tumah anymore. So there was a zaken that said to Reb Zera, how can you not know? That's not as good. That's not as attached to the ground as if the hole is directly opposite the root. That's much more attached to the ground because it's nourishing from the ground much more than if the hole is in some random area, not opposite the roots, but just it makes the keli be considered not a keli. Okay, it's not a keli, but it's blocking all the nurturing in other places. And here we have it straight up. That for sure should be considered attached. So what Abaya answered him basically was, yesterday, the last words were that when I said that the hole that is large enough for a zayit to come out of, which makes kalim rendered not kalim, and they're tahor, and therefore the earth inside that pot is considered like it's not in the keli, because there is no keli, and it's therefore on the ground, and it's not mekabel tumah. Since it's not mekabel tumah, it's considered like it's on the ground, therefore it's considered mechubar. That's only if the hole is lemata merevius, which means it's so close to the bottom of the keli that it wouldn't be able to hold a revi'at of water. So if it can't hold a revi'at of water, therefore you can't even consider, like we're going to see in a moment, this keli tamei for a gistera. You know what a gistera is? A gistera was a shard of earthenware that they used as a keli. What do you use a shard for? Shard is a broken piece. They used it sometimes. They said, okay, this is good. They had like a little cabinet or a drawer, whatever, of these shards, or they put them under kalim to catch liquids that would drip out. So this is not even going to be good enough for a shard, for that, because the hole in it is beneath the revi'at point, which means it's not even going to be able to hold a revi'at of liquid. And therefore, over there, it's not there at all. It's considered like it's gone. So it's better, it's even less there than when you have a hole which is opposite the root.
Rabbi,
yeah.
In all these situations, we're talking about the plant is actually on top of the ground or inside the ground in a keli?
Well, on top of the ground means not in the ground.
Yeah, like it's sitting on top and it just has a hole.
Yeah, it's only rooted in the flower pot.
In the pot.
Yeah.
The hole.
But there's a hole. Yeah, there's a hole. So the question is, right, exactly. So So basically, the teretz yesterday was, Abaye's teretz was like this. If the hole is low enough that it won't even hold a revi'it, so it's so badly damaged, this keli, that it's considered like it's not there. That's actually less keli than if there would be a hole opposite, right by a root. Because if it's right by root, it's very nice. You have a root coming out of here and there's a hole right there for the root. It's very nice. It's open area. That is not as much michubat to the real ground as this case. Now the Gemara is going to say that there's 5 different midot, measurements of perforations that can... We know that a keli, in order to be mekabel tumah, has to be a keli, has to be a vessel, has to be a receptacle to hold things. If it gets ruined and damaged, now it loses its properties to be mekabel tumah. But there's a whole bunch of different levels. It's not just like, oh, you have a hole, okay, you're not mekabel tumah. You don't have a hole, you're good. There's different types of holes, sizes of holes, and different levels of tumah. So let's begin. Omar Rav. Chamesh midot b'chli cheres. There are 5 different measurements in a kli cheres. Number 1, nikiv kimotzi mashke, tor milutame gistera. If there's a tiny hole in this cup, and imagine this cup is made out of earthenware. Again, earthenware is made tahor by being broken. So if it's broken, a tiny hole, but that hole, it makes it tahor for being tameh for a gistera, which means a gistera is mekabel tumah as well. A gistera is a broken shard. Now, a broken keli, and you have shards, so shards should be garbage, shouldn't be mekabel tumah. It's still mekabel tumah. Because I was miyached, I designated it as a keli. I didn't put it in the garbage. Look, it's in my cabinet. I put this as a perfect thing. It catches drips. So it's still a keli, so it's mekabel tumah. But now that what? It itself, the gister itself, drips out liquid. So now what are you going to do? You're going to get, nobody's going to use it again. Okay? So therefore, it's Torah Milatame Gistera. It won't have the Tumah as Gistera. It won't have the Tumah of Keli from a Gistera.
Because it drips.
Because it itself can't be a good catcher because it itself drips. What? Why? You know why? You know why no one's going to use it as a keli? Because no one's going to put a gistera under a gistera. Once your gistera starts going bad and starts allowing liquids to drip through, you throw it in the garbage. It's not worth anything. So, well, I could still use my drip catcher. Your drip catcher is dripping. Yeah, but I have a drip catcher for my drip catcher. And those two things. So therefore, it's tohar. It's tohar. It won't be mekabel tumah. Okay? So now, but it's still enough of a keli that if it wasn't a gister, let's say it was a complete nice cup made out of earthenware. Now this is a cup that you can fill up mechatos. Mechatos means the water of a spring from the springs that you want to mix the ashes of the paraduma in, and it has to be tohar, right? Obviously, it has to be very tohar because we're very, very makpid on the tahara of the mechatos. So, it's tohar. Yeah, but it has a hole. It's letting out a little bit drips. I think I saw a drip coming out before somewhere. Yeah, but it doesn't matter because it's still a keli. Still a keli. People are not going to throw it out so fast. Okay?
Because the keli would be tahor, and it would be tameh. You could still use it. Okay.
I said tahor?
That's what I heard, I think. That's what it's saying here, no?
I didn't tahor. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for saying that. It's a keli. It's still a keli that can be mekabel tumah. It could be mekabel tumah. Right, it could be mekabel tumah. Thank you. And it's a keli to be able to fill up the mechatos. You have to put it into a keli. The Torah says put it into a keli. So if it's a keli that's good enough to mechatos, it's also going to be mekabel tumah. Okay? But what next case? Nikav kekoinis mashke, that's level 2. Now it's a little bit wider. The hole is a bit wider. And now, if you would put this cup into a bowl of water, see the cup that we were speaking about till now, it was empty, the one that had that little hole that let a little bit of water out, that hole is so tiny that if you would put it would be empty, and you would put it into a bowl of water backwards like this, nothing would get in. It's just if there's a lot of pressure inside filled with water, then it will drip out a drop, but nothing's going to get in. But what about if it's a little bit wider, and if you would put it into a bowl of water, or another cup of water would be able to kones mashke, it's a larger one, and it even allows liquids to pour in, to get in, then torim the kaddish b'michatos. Now it becomes tahor. Doesn't really mean tahor. It means batel. Okay, it's nullified from being able to be the kaddish by mechatos. It's not a keli. It's not a keli anymore. You cannot use this. Okay, so you're going to tell me now it's not a keli. So therefore, it's not a keli for anything? No. It's still a keli to be machshir zroim. That means that if you plant things in this keli, okay, so we consider the keli not attached to the ground. This is a pot for plants, and it has that hole that allows some liquids to get through. We consider it talush, that it's detached from the ground, and it's not a large enough hole to make it considered part of the ground. And it's even according to the Chachamim, they're considered a perforated pot, more attached than Rabbi Shimon. This is not big enough. Why? Because the size of this hole is not large enough for the roots inside the pot to be sho'ef, to draw out, to smell out, and to breathe in the soil's, the soil's contents and all of its power to make it grow. And therefore, this size hole is still not going to be considered a hole for the perforated pot. And therefore, by the way, what's the halacha now? So the halacha is going to be that if you pull something out on Shabbat, nachayav. Another halacha is that if it gets wet, your peppers that are growing in here, they get wet, you pour some water on them, they're huchsha, that's what it's saying. It's kliu l'hachsha b'yizroim. They're not attached to the ground. They're talush. So therefore they're able to be mekabel tumah. The peppers will become susceptible to be mekabel tumah. Okay? Nikiv gesherish koton. What about if the hole got a little larger? And now it's not just letting drips out, and it's not just letting water in, but it's large enough to have it's the size of a small root. Okay.
same thing like the other one.
Yeah. No. So now it's tahor melach shabos reid. Now the roots inside that pot are tahor from becoming susceptible to tumah, because they are attached to the ground. Since the hole in the pot is the size of those roots, so now they're able to draw from the ground. Now they're considered attached to the ground, and therefore you're not going to be able to make them tamei at all. Even if you pour a lot of water on them and you want it, and then tumah comes and falls on them, they won't be tamei because they're attached to the ground. But v'adayin kliyu, because you basically, right, because you're breaking the keli, so much so that the roots are drawing nurture, they're growing from the ground. But v'adayin kliyu lekabel bozeti. But it's still able to be mekabel tumah. The pot still has this cup, this keli of cheres, this kli cheres, is still mekabel tumah. Why? Because it's still able, the pot is able to be mekabel tumah. Not it's inside. The inside is attached to the ground. But the pot is still able to be considered a pot. You know why? Because it's very nice. The hole was tiny, got bigger. Now it's bigger, even the size of a root. It's very nice. But I can still use it for olives. Okay, take out the earth, whatever I want. A normal klicheres is judged by olives. I can still hold olives inside it. So it's a keli. So it's makabel tumah. The keli itself is makabel tumah. Okay? Nikev kemotzi zaitim. But what happens then? If it's not only the size of a root, but it got even wider, and now it's exactly the size of motzi zaitim. It will allow the zayit to fall out of it. I guess the size of motzi zaitim is a tiny drop bigger than the zayit. It's exactly the same size. It's hard for it to slip out. I'm not sure. But anyways, now it's a size that the zayit, a normal average zayit, will fall out. So, it's totally tahor, right? But still. V'adayin kliyu lekabel bo rimonim. It's still a keli. That means, I thought you told me that you judge it by olives, not by rimonim, not by pomegranate. The answer is, if you're miyached it, let's say I say, this pot over here, you see this pot? We need it. We always go to get the rimonim from the store. This is the one for the rimonim. You have to understand, in those days, first of all, where did they keep things? They kept them in these kalim. And how did they transport things? Not with bags. They had these kalim. They had these vessels. So if he says this will be used for the large fruits, for the rimonim, we don't want to use it anymore. Now he's maybe a cheap guy, maybe he's not rich, but in those days everybody was frugal, right? Unless you were very wealthy, you threw it out. But let's say this guy says, look, we can't use it anymore for the small fruits, for the zaytim, which is the average thing. So you know what? Okay, we'll still make usage out of it, right? What will we do with it? We'll use it for rimonim. So if he was miyached it for rimonim, it's still mekabel tumah. It's still alive. It's still alive. Nikav kemotzi rimonim tahor miklum. Okay? But once it already got so large, the hole, that it's allowing the pomegranates to fall out, that's how large the holes are. Even if it's a very, very large thing, right? Let's say it's as large as this table even. But there's a big hole right here. And if you put rimonim, they're going to roll down and they're going to go out. So tahor miklum. It's not going to be mekabel any more tumah. Okay? By the way, if you take this shard now, you say, okay, and now you use it as a gistra, it will work. Okay? Because you break, and then you have like...
Why can't they use it for avitichim?
I hear. Because it wasn't the derech, I guess. No. Once it had that hole, they threw it out. That was just the derech, I guess. They didn't say, okay, now use it for avitichim. You know, that was already too much of a large hole. They threw it out. But then he says a big chiddush. V'imhukav tzomit patil achi paches rubo. Is halacha? Do you know this halacha? That if you have any item in a room with a dead person, and there's a roof over them, So the tumah spreads to everything. There's a pasuk that says that if the kalim, right? So this will become tamei. I will become tamei. This will become. Let's say you have this key inside a keli, and the keli is sealed. So then it protects all the items inside this keli, and therefore it's not tamei. So Rabbi says a big chiddush here. He says, listen to this. If you have a keli that has a hole in the bottom that's so large that there's nothing left to it, it's even the size of kimaitzi rimonim. It's the size on the bottom, has a big hole, the size of rimon. But the top is sealed, vim hukaf tzamid patil. Okay? And it was an oel amet. The tumah is not going to enter through the bottom hole, even if it's the size of a rimon. And it's going to save everything inside the keli. Achi pachet rubo. So there is still some properties left to be keli. Okay? The keli can't be mekabel tumah. But it could save, because the tumah of a mace in an oihel only enters a keli, a vessel, through the petach, through the opening, not through holes.
Even if it was flipped upside down.
I hear, maybe.
Gravity thing?
I'm not sure. It's a good shaila. I hear the shaila. I'm not sure. Okay. Fine. Omer Avasi. Shomati kli cheres shi'ura kimoitzi rimoy. I heard that a kli cheres, its shear, as long as the hole is not as large as a rimon, it's still a kelit in mekabel tumah. So this is not like Rava. Why? Because Rava said that's only if you're miyached it for a rimon. But the normal keli works with what? With a zayit. Okay? If you don't say that you're going to use it for a rimon, then it's not mekabel tumah anymore. Maybe you haven't heard this halacha only be mukav tzamid pasel. In regards to saving what's inside when it's closed tightly. But the kli itself is not mekabel tumah. Once it already is large enough, the hole is large enough to allow zaytim to fall out. So maybe you heard this halacha that the kli cheres, the shear is moitzi rimayin. Now, I don't want to mix stuff up because Rava himself said about moitzi rimayinim. But that's only when you're miyached it for a rimayin. But a normal keli doesn't work with that. It works with zaytim. So therefore, Rav is trying to make sense out of this, what Avasi heard. He said, I heard kli cheres shear is k'moitzi rimayin. It's k'moitzi zaytim normally. So he told him, maybe you heard that only when there was a seal over it. So then moitzi rimayin is going to be the problem. So the Gemara says, what are you talking about? And then you'll be satisfied with what he heard? Rava just told us a second ago that even if it's sealed completely, even if it's moitzi rimayin, it still will save it. It has to be actually pachet rubo. It has to be most of it was lessened, was mitigated off, right? I never said that before. Actually, pachet rubo means it has to be mostly a hole that's not just the size of a rimon, but most of it has been opened. Okay, so it's not a keli at all. It's batal the shame of keli entirely. So how could Rava be satisfied with that shmua of moitzi rimayin, that will be the size that makes it okay for the tumah to get in, even if it's mukif tzamid pasel. Says the Gemara. And says the Gemara, loy kasha. Habirav habizutri. Which means that if it's a very large keli, then you need roiv of it to break. You need rov. You need most of the keli to break. In order for you to consider it not being able to save the things inside of it. But if it's a small one, then Rava would be moided that even kimaitzu rimainim, the seal won't be able to save it. Now, what is big and what is small? Rashi doesn't say. So the Mefarshim say that the Ramban and the Rashba say that according to Rashi, a small one is very simple. It's really no difference in the shir. If you would break most of it, it would be less than a rimain. The whole would still be less than rimain. That whole that is the size of the majority of it is still less than rimain. So then it's not enough to break the majority. You have to break the mitzvah rimain. But the other ones that roiv is more than a mitzvah rimain, then a mitzvah rimain is enough. No, but a kli gadol that the hole is larger than a mitzvah rimain, then you need to have a roiv of it. A kli katan, that once you have mitzvah rimain, you have roiv. So then it's not enough to have roiv. You have to have mitzvah rimain as well. Okay? But in the other one, you have to have roiv. Omer Rav Asi, shoinin kli cheres shi'urei b'koinis mashke. The Tanoim teach in a brisa the following: kli cheres shi'urei b'koinis mashke. A kli cheres is shear, the smallest hole that's going to ruin it from being a keli is b'koinis mashke. If liquid could get in, because at that point it's going to be tahor, it's going to be not usable, not okay, disqualified from being used for mechatat. Okay, and even a smaller hole than that, they never said it will ruin the keli, only in regards to gistera. Which means, if you had a shard that you're miyachid to catch things, then it will be tahor. My timer. And why does a gistera ruin with moitzi mashke? Because nobody says bring a drip catcher for the drip catcher. Nobody does that. You throw it out. Omar Ula, pligi botrei amaroi b'marova. Two Amaroyim have a machlokes about this in Marova. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Avim, Rabbi Yossi bar Zavta. Now we're really going back to the inyan of the shear of the nekev inside a kli cheres, that the things that are growing inside of it are considered mechuber to the karka, and therefore they're not going to be able to be huksher, susceptible to mekabel tumah if they are attached to the ground, and vice versa if they're not. So there's a machlokes amaroim how big that hole has to be. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Avim, Rabbi Yossi bar Zavta. The Chad Omer, one says kimaitzi rimain. The Chad Omer k'sherish katan. One says like a small root, and one says kimaitzi rimain. V'simaneich. Okay. So, by the way, before we said it's the root, that's what Rava said. But here, Ula is telling us that there's a man, the Omer, that says it's kimaitzi rimain. The only time it's considered attached to the ground, and it's not hukshul l'kabatum, it's only if it's kimaitzi rimain. V'simonech. How are you going to remember these two shitot? That one says it's small like a nekev cotton, which is smaller than a zayit. And the other one skips the next step. He doesn't say zayit, he says rimon. And you're not going to make a mistake that it's a zayit. You're going to say echad amarbe ve'echad amamit. Meaning one of them was marbe. And he said he took the largest amount. K'moitzi rimon. And one of them was mamit, he took the smallest shear of Kisherish Katan. None of them were the middle road of Kimoiti Zaysin for the halachas of Huchshul Kabel Zroy. Omer Rav Chinan Bar Kahana Mishmei Rabbi Eliezer. We said before that Rav said that if you are miyached the keli, you say, you know what? I know that it's a lot of people might throw it out because now it's allowing Zaysim to fall out, but I'm going to use it for Rimonim. So then, when does it become tahor? It will stay tameh until it gets a hole the size of a rimon. So Omer Av Chinan Bar Kahana Mishmei Rabbi Eliezer, he argues. He says, Klicheres shi'ure k'moitzi zaysim. Klicheres, the shear is k'moitzi zaysim, and not k'moitzi rimon. U'ma'kshisha bered Rabbi Misayim ba Mishmei Rabbi Eliezer v'harein k'klei glolim u'chlei avonim u'chlei adomo. There's so much so not mekabel tumah because it's allowing zaytim to fall out that they are like kalim that are made of glolim. Glolim is the waste from animals. They would sometimes form kalim out of them. Uchlei avonim, stone kalim, uchlei adoma, and now isn't klicheres klei adoma? The difference is klei adoma means that it's not yet put in the furnace, so it's not mekabel tumah. It's earth. Klei avon, the common thread between the denominator is that they're all not mekabel tumah at all, and that's what this is. That's what this klicheres is. Once it had a hole the size of k'moitzi zaysim. She'em mekabel tumah lo midivrei Torah v'lo midivrei soifrim. Nothing. There's no even tumah d'rabbanon. And even if you miyached them and you say I'm going to use them for a rimon, and you start using them for a rimon for a whole year straight, it doesn't matter. It's moitzi zaysim. It's a problem. Okay. We don't pass like this. I don't think we pass like Rava. That's K'moitzi Rimainim. Well, the Indian Tzamid Pasul actually Pachis Rui. But in regards to Tzamid Patil, that, even if it's Moitzi Zaysim, it will still save the things inside. Ad Sheipachet Rubo. There he holds like Rava that it needs the majority of the Keli to be perforated for it not to save the things inside it from the Tumah. Hadron Aloch Hamatzniya Mazel Tov. Let the Matzniya return to us. Okay, let's start the new perek. Aboisai Baruch Hashem. We're back into our best sugya now for the whole perek. Hazoyrek. We're back to Hoitzah. You never want to leave Hoitzah for too long. Hoitzah. We're back to Hoitzah. Some of the Gemaras that are in Hazoyrek were already mentioned. Some of them are mamish, the fundamental yisoidus of Daf Kuf. Okay. Back to Hotah. Okay? Okay, so let's start the Heilige Mishnah here. Mishnah Ketosha. Hazoyrek Mishus HaYochel Mishus HaRabim. Someone throws from Mishus HaYochel to Mishus HaRabim. Okay? Not only placing, but the Chiddush of the Mishnah is that you threw a chayfetz is also malacha from the Torah, and it's a tolda of Hitzah, because what you're really doing is you're being oiker from the Rishus HaYochid and you're putting in the Rishus HaRabim.
Why are they bringing this up again? We've already covered this. Why do you?
You think you covered it because first of all I told you because hazorek over here it's zorek, it's throwing. Throwing is also included. That's the first chiddush in the Mishnah.
We didn't say throwing in the beginning of Masechet Shabbos. That wasn't brought up.
No, we were talking about handing. So the chiddush over here is throwing. Now there's going to be new cases in the Mishnah that we didn't have, called moishit, and we're going to get to a lot of chiddush. You'll soon see in the Gemara how many things that we didn't cover. So you'll see. Be'ezrat Hashem. Okay. Hazorig mishus hayochel mishus harabim mishus harabim mishus hayochid chayiv. So if you throw, you're chayiv. Okay, fine. Rishus hayachid, rishus harab be'emtza. Now you're going to say, why do you, this we learned. This you learn, right? When you have the rishus harab in between, is machlokes Rabbi Kiva and the chachamim. Yeah, but you know what you were quoting the whole time? This. This is what we were quoting. We were bringing this Mishnah as a right, but this is where it is. This is the source. So you have the Rishus HaRabim in the middle, and you throw from Rishus HaYachid across the street to another Rishus HaYachid. So Rabbi Kiva Mechayiv and the Chachamim Poiter. What's the reason for this machlokes? We're going to see in the Gemara. Keitzad. What is the case here? You have two porches which are built from beams, from boards that are placed on these, like, I don't know what they call them, sticking out of the wall, jutting out of the wall, these metal, I don't know what, supports. And now you put the beams, the boards on top of them, and now you build yourself a porch in Rishus HaYachid. That is a Rishus HaYachid. Okay, now, they're 10 tefachim higher than the ground. And they're 4 tefachim wide. So they constitute their own Rishut HaYachid. Okay, that's why they're called Rishut HaYachid, even if they don't have any mechitzot. Okay? Now what happens? So hamoishit v'azdorik mezulazu patur. If you pass or you throw from one gezustera to the other gezustera, patur. Okay, now because one to the other.
Is it 2 personal domains?
It's 2 personal domains. So therefore you're patur. Okay.
Same kasha from the Beit Yom Chachamim, no?
Oh.
Rishut HaYachid, and Rishut HaRabim in the middle.
So the problem, but the point is that since you're higher than 10 tefachim, right? If you're higher than 10 tefachim and you're passing from one to the other, you're going to be potter because your height is higher than the Rishus HaRabim.
2.
Yes. And you're not in the Rishus HaRabim. And you're going really from an Akir in Rishus HaYachid into another Rishus HaYachid through this Patur. So you're going to be Patur. Okay? But, Hayushteim be due to Achas, if they're both coming out of one attic, 1 second floor, okay? But they're not next to each other. You don't have the Rishus HaRabim in between the two. They're both on the same side of the street. But you have the Rishus HaRabim still in between the two because they're not, beneath them is Rishus HaRabim. But they're on the same side of the street. Hamoishit chayev v'hazorik potter. Okay, so now, if you pass them through the Rishus HaRabim, you're chayev. If you throw them, you're potter. Okay? Now, why in the world? What now? If they're on the same side of the street, then throwing your potter but passing your chayiv, what does that change? So the Mishnah says, "Shekachoy sa'avodas alavim," because this is what happened with the Levim in the Mishkan. The Levim would take apart the Mishkan and reassemble it in the new spot. So this family of Merari, as we saw in last week's parasha, would carry the krushim of the Mishkan and their bolts and the adanim and the amudim, and they had wagons for these things, right? And they would have the wagons travel 2 at a time, one next to the other. So when they would load the wagons, they would put the wagons next to each other, and
both.
Yeah, you mind if I go to the restaurant for a minute? Sorry, you might want to pause it.
every day. And so I look at it a lot. People do this, and you see. Look at your, oh, you have the phone. You see how this is a link.
Mm-hmm.
So every page, just go. You don't have to go crazy. Just when you click on it, just like, for example, let's say this. Right, so you have, this is all the, as you're going through it, this was yesterday's, right? So the pods, right? All the different things. Right, so now this is today, right? So if you want to, let's say for tomorrow, all you do, go here, just change it to 97. That's all you have to do.
Oh, nice.
You have to like go crazy. So you have your phone there. In a perfect world, I would tell you, I would just print, if I could, I would just print them out every single day and just have them handy. But it's just right now, I'm going to just print out that. But it's very helpful, like, I need to see it. I'm a visual person, so I need to see it.
All of these things have to be seen.
Yeah.
You got to speak to Medresh Medresh or just emailing and stuff like that?
So far, I just did the online application. Now I just start uploading documents, and then they're supposed to be like reaching out to you. And they gave me a phone number to also call them. But I just wanted to. For me, it was more of like I need to start the process and just get it done. It's long. It's not like a 2-second process. 6 to 8 months, I think. So they ask you, when do you want to go? What's your timeline? So you put a date. I put a date. I didn't want to. It's a tough decision. I've been talking about with my wife. It's just I really want to, and that's it's hard to start over again. Forced honey, whether you like it or not, at some point. At some point, it's just almost like I have to go with this is okay. You know the history. At some point.
So we said, "Shekach hoisa avodas haLevim." This is the way that the Levim carried the kroshim in the Mishkan on top of the agalot. They would pass them one to the other, and therefore that becomes a melacha. Shtei agalot zu achazu b'shut rabim. If you have two wagons, they would have two wagons, one after the other. Moshitin akroshim zuluzu, and they would pass the kroshim one to the other, from the back of this one to that one. So therefore, that's why we know that this is a malacha. Avoloi zorkin, but they wouldn't throw, and they also wouldn't pass to the one on the side. They would pass on the one from the one that was in front of it. They would pass the kroshim from one to the other. So therefore, the Gemara is saying, the Mishnah is saying that since the malacha of masechet is a very big chiddush over here. Masechet means that you're passing over a makom p'tur, in the makom p'tur. But at the end of the day, that's what happened in the Mishkan, and therefore masechet is still a malacha, and you're going to be chayav. And therefore, since masechet only took place, masechet means to pass. Again, moshit means to pass, zorek means to throw. Since masechet took place in this way specifically, b'dyuta achat, and only with hoshata and not with zrika, therefore, you can't learn it out to any other way of doing the same melacha. Okay, now you might say, why not? Why don't we say that anything that's similar to it, like throwing or napi dyuta achas, is a tolda? Let it be a tolda. We always learn out other things, other actions, as long as they're similar. And the answer is, because this is really lacking, this is a very great chidush, because since you're really passing the chayfetz, the item, above 10 tfachim, which is a makom petur, it's a great chidush, and therefore you cannot learn out any other isurim to any other cases. Okay? So this is the basic Mishnah here. So let's get this Mishnah one more time. Zrika is chayav. Zrika between Reshut Rabim, if you have, it's a machlokes Rabbi Kiva and the Chacham say potter. Now you're going to say, one second, the Chacham say potter, but b'dyuta achat, that's when you have the hefsek, when you have an interpose between the Reshut Rabim, the width of the Reshut Rabim, between both Reshut Yachids. But if you don't have the whole Reshut Rabim in between them, they're just one behind the other, because on the same side of the street, so then they resemble the wagons in the Beit HaMikdash, which the Leviim carry from one to the other by passing. So passing one to the other will be a issue. Now, it's still a little bit misubach, a little bit befuddled. It's not 100% clear. Is this Rabbi Kiva? The Chacham that are poiter, they agree. We're going to see in the Gemara exactly how to read this Mishnah. It's not just a simple Mishnah. It reads very quickly, but it's not so you start thinking about it, it's not so clear. Who's it talking about? So we'll see in the Gemara. So the Gemara says this. Mechdi, Zrika toldo doitzohi. Itzah gufei ksiva. Zrika is for sure a toldo, it's not an av. Remember, we never mentioned Zrika in the 39. We called it Hotzah. Hotzah means you go out of your home and you place it down. So Zrika is a tolda. So the Gemara says, you know what? Now that you're talking about the toldas, let's talk about the Av for a second. Where does it ever mention the Av? Where is it written in the Torah? Meaning, where do we learn it out from? Omar Rabbi Yochanan. Now, could I ask you a question? What do you mean, where do you learn it out from? I'll show you ask it. You learn it out from the Mishkan. Here, the Gemara is looking for more than that. Why? We'll see in a minute. Moshe called out, and he said, right after Yom Kippur, and he said, now that Hashem said, I forgive you, he wants to be, his Shekhinah to be relegated to one specific spot called the Mishkan. You have to build a Mishkan. And he said, everybody should bring, and after 2 days, they brought more than enough. So he said, Ish v'isha yasu oid milacha l'tumat HaKodesh v'yikaleh me'avi. He said, everybody stop bringing. Okay? So he said, everybody stop bringing. Moshe Hechan Havi Yosef. Where was Moshe standing? Where was he settled when he spoke about this? B'machan Leviyah. The Machan Leviyah was the camp of Leviim, which surrounded the Mishkan. This Machan Leviyah, Machan Leviyah, Shusarab Mav. Everybody used to come to Moshe Rabbeinu to speak to him, to learn Torah and to get judged. Therefore, everybody was there, and therefore it's a Reshus HaRabim. Now, why did you just say it's a Reshus HaRabim? Because there were 22,000 Leviim, because according to Rashi, 22,000 Leviim is not enough to Reshus HaRabim. You need 600,000. But you could say that there were 600,000 people that would come here because Moshe Rabbeinu lived there, and this was central station. This was it. This was where they came to learn Torah. This is where they came to get judged, and therefore it has a halacha of Reshut Rabim. V'ka'amalu li Yisrael, and Moshe Rabbeinu told Klal Yisrael, Lo tapiku v'taitu mishut hayachid yidchul l'reshut rabim. Don't, he said, stop doing melacha over here. Okay? So Moshe Rabbeinu said, don't bring any more things. Why not? Because you're going to be carrying from your reshut, from your tent, into this area, which is the Reshut Rabim. So this is the Isser of Haitzah. So the Gemara says, one second, how do you know that he was telling them to stop bringing because it was Shabbat and because they're going to be carrying? Maybe Moshe Rabbeinu was just telling them, we have enough, don't bring. And it wasn't on Shabbat. It was on a Tuesday, and he said, don't bring any more because we have enough. Why are you saying that he's telling them, don't bring, because it's Shabbat, and you're going from your Reshut, your tent, into this area where I am, by the Mishkan, and that's a Reshut Rabim. So the Gemara says, Gomer Havora Havora Miyom Kippurim. Because he knew that it was because he had a Gzeira Shava. It means Gzeira Shava is, we find the same word in two places, and we learn out laws from one for the other. Ktiv Hacha. And we learn equations. It says here, Vayaviru Kol B'Machaneh, that Moshe passed a sound through the Machaneh. Means he made, let everybody know. Uchtiv Hatam, and it says Vayom Kippurim, Ve'avarta, they would pass Shofar Truah, the Shofar is Truah. So Malahalam B'Yom Asur, Afkan B'Yom Asur. Just like there, it was on a day that was Asur, okay? So too, today was also on Shabbat. Okay? And therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu was telling us, through this Gzeira Shava, we know that he was telling us something about Shabbat. And he was saying, don't carry. Don't just not do it because we have enough. But be careful not to carry from your home to here because it's going to be a melacha of hotza'ah. So the Gemara says, Ashkechan hotza'ah, hachnasa min alan. Okay, you're right. You found hotza'ah, that's going out from a Reshut HaYachid to a Reshut Rabim. Okay? However, but how do you know hachnasa? From going from Reshut Rabim into Reshut HaYachid, how do you know that's Asur as well? So the Gemara says, Svara here. It's just logical. Meaning, since the Torah said you're not allowed to do hotza'ah, you're also not allowed to do achnasa. For the same reason. If the Torah deems the act of being oikir a chayvetz from Reshut HaYachid and placing Reshut Rabim as a real bona fide melacha, so therefore it must be the opposite is also a melacha. So the Gemara says, Mechti, Mireshus l'Reshusu, Mali Afuki, Mali Ayuli. One is from one Reshus to the other. So what's the difference if I take it out or I take it in? Miu hoitzo av achnosa told. However, the av that we learn now from the pasuk is hoitzo, and achnosa going in from Reshut Rabim is the tolda. Okay, because one is written and one isn't written. So one that's written is the av, and the one that's not written is the tolda. Okay. So now the Gemara says umechti ahom mechayev ahom mechayev. Am I kar lo hai av? Am I kar lo hai tolda? What's the difference? At the end of the day, you're telling me that logically, since the Torah said you're not allowed to do hotza'ah, so we know that hachnasa is the malacha that's prohibited as well. So what's the difference? What you want to call it? You're the daddy, you're the child. You're the av malacha. What's the difference? What's the nafkamina halacha? What you call it? They're both astur. They're both going to get skila. They both have karet. And if a person does it chas v'shalom unwillingly, he'll bring a chatat. So what's the nafkamina? So the nafkamina is the I of shtei avot b'hadi adodi. Inam ishtei todot b'hadi adodi mechayev tarti. If a person does two separate avot together, or two separate todot from two different melachot, he'll have to bring two korbanot. But the I ovid av v'todot didei the mechayev elachoda. But if he does an av and its own toldo, okay, for example, a person threshes wheat, and at the same time he also milks a cow. which is a tolda of threshing, because it's extracting something that's contained in something, so that he's going to bring only one korban if he did it behelam echad in one forgetting. Okay? If it would be considered its own av melacha, however, achnasa is its own av, it's a separate melacha, there's haitzah, there's achnasa, then you'd have to bring two. So the Gemara says, Ula Rabbi Eliezer, the Mechayev told him av. But according to Rabbi Eliezer's opinion, that what? That you are, there's no difference between avos and toldos in regards to a chatos. Just like if you do two separate avos or two separate toldos, you have to bring two chataot. The same halacha applies to an av and its toldo. You bring two separate chataot because they're different. So amai karlo av, amai karlo toldo. So for what purpose? According to Rabbi Eliezer, you go to knock on Rabbi Eliezer's door and you ask him, why are you calling this an av and this a toldo? Okay, one's written, one wasn't written. But why you're giving it such a, you're categorizing it, you're giving it a name. You remember your av, your tolda. For what? For chataot, they're just as important, the toldot. You'll bring a separate one. So why are you giving it such a name? So he says, hach to have a mishkan chashiva, kori la'av, hach to lo have a mishkan chashiva, le kori la'av. The one that was chashiv in the Mishnah, in the Mishkan, which they did, is called an av. And the one that was not chashuv in the Mishkan, it wasn't important, lekar la'av. It's only called a tolda. There's no real difference. They're really all the same. Inami, another teretz says, hach t'chsiva kari av, v'hach t'lo y'chsiva kari tolda. The one that's written, he gave the name, since it was written, so he wanted to give it a better name, so he called it av. But there is really no difference. Okay. Now the Gemara says, 1 second. There's another way of being over the Isser Malacha of Hitzah. And what is the source to that Isser? What's the case? If someone throws 4 amot in Rishut Rabim, but you know where it lands? It lands on the face of a wall. It's a sticky item. It's like from a igule dvela to dvela shmena. It's a fat fig. You throw it at the wall and it sticks to the wall. It doesn't fall to the ground. If you threw it and it landed in a spot higher than 10 tefachim, it's like throwing it in the air and it never landed. It's a makam patur, and you're patur. But if it landed on a spot on the wall lower than 10 tefachim, that's like throwing it on the ground. So you see that you're chayiv on zrika from this Mishnah. So zorak arba amas b'shusarab menol de mechayiv. How do you know that's you're chayiv? You see from this Mishnah that there's something called not from rishus to rishus, from rishus yachad to rishus rabim, but rather in rishus rabim itself, 4 amot throwing. How do you know you're chayiv? Okay. And it's interesting, some Rishonim say that the Gemara only wants to know the source for throwing 4 amot. For passing 4 amot, or for walking 4 amot, I'm carrying something, that was halacha l'Moshe Medresh. I didn't ask that. They want to know, how do you know the throwing? Amar Rabbi Yoshia. Again, because we're not doing a reshut l'reshut. We're not doing a reshut l'reshut here. It's in one reshut, it's all reshut rabim. Amar Rabbi Yoshia, shekein, because the people who had to weave the panels, the mishkan, the curtains, when one of them needed to, hey, do you have the needle? I need the needle. So they would throw the machat 4 amot in Rishut Rabim. So the Gemara says, what does weavers need needles for? The people that sewed up the panels, they would do embroidery work on the Uriot with lions and eagles and all sorts of things on the Mishkan, you remember? So they needed needles. How do you know that they threw it? They only threw it if it was distance from me to you. You have it, so they would throw it. But if they were right next to each other, then they never had to throw it. So he says, because Matu Adodim Imchotin. Because if they were next to each other, they would reach each other. They would hurt each other with the needles. Because when they would remove the needle to tighten the stitch, they would hurt each other. So the Gemara says, fine, but maybe they have to distance themselves a little social distancing, so they don't hurt each other with the needles. But maybe it was less than 4 amot. It wasn't 6 to 8 feet. By the way, that's 4 amot. 6 to 8 feet, according to different shitas. It wasn't social. Maybe it was less than that. Maybe it was 3 to 6. Elo Omar Rav Chizda shekein orge yiriya is zarkin buchya beiriya. They would throw the buchyar. The weavers with the buchyar was this keli that the yarn of the erev was wrapped around it, and they would throw the warp and the woof to each other, and they would have to throw it in the Rishut Rabim. And every time they would throw it through the entire width of the panel, it was 4 amot, and that's why that's throwing 4 amot in Rishut Rabim. So the Gemara asks, "V'halo ogdo biyado." But the person that's throwing the buchyar is holding on to it the whole time. He never let go of it. So therefore, even after he throws it, it's still ogud, it's still attached to him. And therefore, it's not considered a real throw, because it's still in the original place. So the Gemara says, "Benischa basra." It's the last yarn in thread in the thing. And basically, the way they would throw the warp over the woof, that's the way they would weave it or something like that. I'm not sure exactly what the Metzias is over here. But afterwards, that last throw, the whole item would fall. And they would throw the whole thing. So the Gemara says, but the area between the two panels was actually separated from the Rishut Rabim. And it was a makom petur. So throwing the bukhir between the two walls was not really throwing it in 4 amot in Rishut Rabim. So the Gemara says, "Ela shekein orge yiriyos zarkin bukhir l'shay alein." The people who would weave the yiriyos would throw the bukhir to their friend that needed a new bukhir. Not when they were actually putting the warp into the woof, throwing the yarn over. But they would just throw it to their friends. So the Gemara says, maybe they were sitting next to each other. So the Gemara says, no, they couldn't, because they would hurt themselves. Matu hadodi b'chefest. They would also hurt themselves over there with these different tools. So the Gemara says, maybe the weavers of the panels were distanced, but they were one behind the other. And they were one behind the other in a zigzag. So therefore, they wouldn't hurt each other. And that way you can say that they weren't so far from each other, and you don't have a raya that they had to throw it. Maybe they would just hand it to each other. Visu, and furthermore, mishi ili mehadadi. Would they ever borrow utensils from each other? Ve'atanya Luda. Luda was the name of a chacham. He taught, Ish mimelachta asher hema oisim. The pasuk says, mimelachta yoisim ve'eino oisim mimlechas chaverei. Everybody would work for themselves and not from his friend. Everybody had specialized utensils for themselves, and they never needed to borrow from another person. Visu, and furthermore, even if you say that they threw it, and you can learn the melacha, but how do you know passing? Here the Gemara asks it. That's before we said from the Rishonim. Elokol arba amas b'shus harabim gomru gemirla. Said the Gemara, everything in Rishut Rabim, the 4 amot in Rishut Rabim, is halacha l'Moshe Sinai. So therefore, you can't ask about this. Now, It's an interesting thing. The Halacha Moshe Sinai said that it's a tolda. The name of the Malacha is Hoitzah, and that's the Av. Hashem told Moshe in Har Sinai that there's a tolda of that called Rishut Rabim, the Rishut Rabim. Stop over here, Bezrat Hashem, and